Hello and welcome to Paradox, Untold Stories from Athletic Directors with Dr. Danielle Lapointe and Dr. Dustin Smith. We have some crazy and unique stories for you, which are made possible by our sponsor, Wall of Fame. At the Wall of Fame, our mission is to bring your school's legacy to life. We transform school tributes to make it easier than ever to celebrate your whole community, showcasing your school's diverse history, proudest moments, and top role models. We understand that the true value of our Wall of Fame is in your content. Whether you are starting a new tribute or adding to an existing one, we give you all the resources you need to build an interactive experience and take your content to the next level. Speaking of next level, let's check in to see what Danielle and Dustin have for us today.
Hey everyone, excited to have Damian Frassinelli with us today. How are you doing today, Damian?
I'm doing great here in Connecticut. Thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate it.
So excited to have you here, but I know Dustin is extra excited. He always is, right? He's living the dream.
I'm
Are you
always living the
still?
dream in OKLA, and Damien has had the pleasure, I guess I'll say, of being at Broken Arrow. He's gotten to see what Broken Arrow is, and for those who haven't, um, you're missing out. It's a pretty neat place. But Damien hails from what we like to call Radiator Springs, but it's really not Radiator Springs. It's a small town, and we can talk about just where he's at in Connecticut here in a little bit. But Damien presently serves as the past president of the NIAAA board, and he is an athletic administrator up in Connecticut. We'll dive into where. And I've had the great pleasure of spending a lot of time with Damien, a lot of conversations that we've had, and we'll get into that section one and what that what that group of people is. We'll get into some things that happen in the boardroom that we can elaborate on, and some that happen outside of that. But Damien is an expert driver's ed instructor or critiquer. We could get into that story a little bit as well. But I'm honored that Damien's not just the past president of the NIAAA board, but he's also a friend, and it's somebody that I lean into, lean on, pick his brain quite a bit. And he'll tell you that doesn't take long, but I'll pick his brain and we'll have some conversation. But Damien, my first question I always ask is, tell us what the resume doesn't tell us about who Damian is, outside of being the athletic administrator, outside of directing youth sports, and we can talk about that in a little bit as well. But tell us who Damian Frassinelli is outside of this role as an AD.
Well, I appreciate that. Honestly, I'll say that I am the husband of Kelly Frassinelli and the father of Olivia and Sophia. And clearly, that is the most important thing I'll ever do. And if I'm known for anything, it is for being their dad. So in Stafford, we have a nice home that we have built to house our family. I have four older brothers and a younger sister. So when we put the house together, we had a big front porch and a big yard, so we can always have everybody over. And I always go to Sophia was probably, I don't know, 10 or whatever. And we said, all right, Sophie, what do you want for your birthday? Bounce a house. You want to go to, laser tag or whatever? She's like, no, can we have the family over for a big party? And that's the kind of kid, we have. And Sophia and Olivia, same thing, close to home. I'm extremely proud of my wife, who is a college coach, coaches field hockey at Southern Connecticut State University. And that's kind of I always say this, if I was a Division II college coach, or you were, or whomever, people would be falling all over themselves. She happens to be a female head coach. And so some people don't make as big a deal, but she's a big deal. And when someone calls the house and says, hey, can I talk to Coach Fraz? I say, yes, let me hand her the phone. And you just go over, and that's okay. And I'm so proud of her. She's got so many ripples out there. Their university is an hour away, and so it's a long drive for her. She tolerates that. But we were here in Stafford for a field hockey game last year, and I said to my assistant, I said, "Can you take a look for a minute and just see how wonderful this is from Kelly's teachings at Southern, because there were 3 coaches at Stafford that were coaching in the game that day, and one of the officials, all alum of Southern Connecticut State University, and we're an hour from that. It isn't like we're in their backyard. So I like to brag on her, and partly too to tie in, Dustin, why you're asking, is because our youngest, Sophia, is playing for Kelly at Southern currently. She's in her freshman season, and I tried to research how many female head coaches had a daughter playing for them, and you really got to do some research, because there ain't a whole lot of it at all. There was one from Oklahoma and so on, but that is a cool thing that I'm so proud of, and we're going down there tomorrow for senior night. So the the long-winded response to that, when I'm not at work, which is most of the time, I am driving to Southern to watch my wife and daughter facilitate a field hockey game, and I can't be more proud.
Damian will tell you the importance of page 28. And you can tell in that answer that he lives out what page 28 says. So before I elaborate any more, Damian, what does page 28 say?
Page 28 perfectly says, this is not about you. It is about others. Humility is that little voice in your ear that says, this is not about you. So whatever you're doing, I am okay with that rule. No problem. I don't know why it's not on page 20, on page 1, but I love to live that. And again, I always explain, again, the youngest, so we have 5 boys, and then 6 years after me, I'm the youngest boy, was my sister, or is my sister. And she's the best of the bunch. Like I say, if they had her first, they wouldn't have wasted their time with 5 boys. But if you ever think that as the 5th boy in that sequence, I ever thought it was about me, you are. I have 4 judges that tell you, no, it is not. Wait your turn. We got you. So it's just the way it is, and I don't know another way, and I am more than okay with that.
So let me ask you this, and I've kidded with you about this in the past, Damian, but how many coach conversations have you had about playing time regarding Sophia?
That would be 0, and that will be my future plan and any other plan down the road. Now, I'll share this story with you, and I have to clean it up a little bit. You have to know Sophia. She is a great kid across the board. Had nothing to do with me and what she did here at Stafford High School, but she was a wonderful kid. We got the recognition for being the great athlete and a great kid and community and leader and everything. So she's had success here in small town Stafford, right? She's always played and always started and all that stuff, and it was good. So she goes down to Southern, D2, and it fits her. She's a great defensive player. And this is her dad talking, right? So we go to the first weekend, and she plays maybe a quarter or a third in the first 2 games up in their tournament. And I thought it was great, and she was good. And then the next game I couldn't go to. It happened to be in New York, and she didn't play at all. And so she sends me a text, and it says, we won 2-0. And then quick follow-up text, I didn't play 1 second. And she says something along the lines of, what is up with that? And I'm thinking, that is the funniest thing I could get from my daughter, who's literally talking about my wife, who's the coach. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that is funny. I show my principal, and he says, you going to talk about that at dinner tonight? I said, no, I am not. I am never talking about that at dinner. So the quick summary of that is she didn't play in the next game at the half, but then got in. It was about the 4th game, really dominated on the defensive end, stayed in field hockey. When it goes to overtime, it goes 7v7, so the field is huge, and she's got speed and defense. So she got in. They played. They ended up losing. The assistant coach stepped up to my wife and said, she has to start every game and play every game. She makes a difference. And my wife said, I'm glad you said that, because I could not say that.
She could not say that. Kelly could not
Mhm.
say it. You certainly couldn't say it either.
Mhm.
I would not say it ever. But it was so again. My wife, I'll go back. She's smarter than me, and she had a plan to make sure that Sophia had to work at it like any other kid would, and then it recognized that she is that good, and really does a great job. So proud of them both, and my daughter Olivia, if you ever met her, she is literally the sweetest girl you'll ever meet in your life. So I'm proud of
So let me ask this, Damon. We've talked about Stafford. You talk about where you're at. We jokingly call it Radiator Springs, but it's our maiden voyage into Connecticut. And you're the first suspect. I mean, first AD that we've talked to. And so, can you paint on a map exactly where Stafford is so that people would know that are listening exactly where you're at?
All right. So, and thank you for that. So, I'll start with why I call it Radiator Springs, right? So, it is a small mill town. We have about 12,000 people. It's a land-wise, it's the third largest town in Connecticut, which Connecticut's not very big. So, when I'm talking Oklahoma, you know, a small town is not is not as small as ours. So, but we're up in the right-hand corner of the state. We border Massachusetts. We're right on the border. And I always say, my home golf course is in Massachusetts. It's 20 minutes down the road, and that's where our home matches are. We don't have a golf course in our town. It's right over the border, and it's again, say a little sleepy town. And we once were great for textiles and doing things, and now we're just sort of, if you will, hardworking blue collar. We have a free and reduced lunch population is probably 30% of our school. And so what we concentrate all the time is, being good citizens and being proud of yourself. And if you want to change any stigma you think that Stafford has, then go out and be a good kid. Show yourself well, represent, play sportsmanlike and pick up after yourself. And if you want to change any perception you have. So, and that's really why I stay here, because I'm proud of the kids here. I don't think I could go anywhere else and really care as much about the community and the kids and the parents as I do here. So, and it's like anything else, right? I can call it, sort of run down a little backwards, but anybody else does, we're gonna go at it. But it's I love it here. It's it's home. My parents have lived here almost all their lives, and most of my family's here. One brother's about an hour away. The rest are local, and it's a good thing. And we border Matt. We're about an hour and a half from Boston, and 2 hours from New York, about 30 minutes 30 minutes east of Hartford. So
So
rural.
you talk about a small town, and prior to just being the AD, I say just being the AD, you had another role, and this helped you, I would assume, love the community even more just because you had to work directly with the community all the time. So what was the additional role that you had that was slash AD?
So the quick answer is the job was the full-time athletic director for the high school and middle school and the town recreation director. So yeah, it was the way I explained it. It worked for everyone except for one person because rec is all the time. It's at night, it's the weekends, and the AD job is any any other time besides that. So um, going back to 2005, I'll tell you the whole story because part of it's funny. My oldest brother Gordy is just the funniest guy, and he was the local politician for a number of years.
Did you
And
say the local or a local?
at the time, he was the local,
Okay,
and
big
now
distinction.
it's past tense. So at the time, he was actually not running any longer for the seat as first elected. But if you can imagine this, the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen got together and agreed that the town needed a rec person and the schools needed an athletic director person. So let's combine the resources and see if that works. So they put it together and formed a committee. Originally, I was on the committee. So my brother Gordy drives to my house. We had just built a house. I'm out in the yard and I'm picking rocks out of what's going to be my lawn. And it's 100 degrees out and I'm sweating. He drives in the yard. I don't think I ever told this publicly. And he drove in, he rolled his window down. And he says, "Hey," he says, "you want to be on this committee to hire the AD rec person?" He said, "because I don't really care so much." And I said, "Sure, I'll do that." He's like, "Great." So we were on the committee. We interviewed 8 people. The superintendent then closed the door and said, "Are all the candidates gone?" And said, "Yep." "Okay, we can't hire any of them. We have to put this back out to bid. Like this is not going to happen." And then she leaned over and she said, "Damian, you're going to apply." And I said to myself, that job stinks. That's a lot of work because nobody's ever been in charge of men's flag football and co-ed basketball and like any of it. They would have a president of each group. Anyway, so I said, let me talk to my wife. Now I was coaching baseball here and basketball and some other things, so they obviously knew who I was. And so I went and talked to my wife, and again, because she's smarter than me, I said, "What do you think? They want me to apply for this?" And she said, "Absolutely, because you can help a lot of people and you can communicate with them and tell them, where to register or what fields are available. You can really do a lot of great things for a lot of people." So I put my application in and then went through the interview process, and then got the job. But I will tell you, again, the things I forget. So in the interview process, there was a nice woman who was on the board. Her name was Lisa Bradley. And they said, "Damien, you have a good rapport with the kids. Can you tell us, how you got your coaching style and so on?" I said, "Well, I had a number of great coaches and a number of coaches that I wouldn't follow their behavior." And I said to Lisa, "Lisa, uh, all due respect," and she was great. I said, I'm gonna tell a story about your late husband who had passed a couple of years prior with cancer. His name was Ed." I said, "I was at St. Edward's and we're in middle school basketball." And I said, and he was coaching and we were jogging laps and he had barked some order. And as a teenage kid, I gave some snarky answer. And the next time I ran past him, he booted me in the ass and said, "Hey, watch your smart mouth." And I said, "So I picked up there, you probably shouldn't do that in a public school setting. So in case you get in trouble." So,
Don't kick children.
and the whole room laughed and it broke the ice. It was a true story. And my wife said, "Did you really tell that story about her husband that had passed that kicked you in the pants?" I'm like, "Yes, I did." So, but it was fun. And, it was, so I took the job and the job was really demanding for a long time. Honestly, I did the job of both roles, AD and town rec, probably 15 years and literally without even a secretary. It, you know, you all know we're our own worst enemy. We will get everything done, whatever that means. We are going to make sure that senior night's going to go out for these kids. We're going to make sure that this jamboree is going to have like all of it. And sometimes people think it must be easy because every night is a production, right? That when the drama uh, group has a play, I mean, everything shuts down, and right, there's lights and security and concessions. And we do that every Friday night, if not, Tuesdays and Thursdays as well. So I did the job. It was really helpful to people. I believe that's what they told me, because they could call one person and find out, "Hey, I want to schedule a lacrosse field or a volleyball game, or how can I have this or that?" And I would just tell them, and it was easy. And we had not really done a great job leading up to that in communicating or putting information out. So I just did what needed to be done. Here's where our facilities are. Here's who you contact. Here's the process. Here's what's available. Like a new to town family, I created a flyer and we're like, here are all the recreation activities and sports and whatever, and here's how you get involved. So it was fun, but it was demanding. Um, but it's it was just what you do and you make it work and you move on.
So let me ask this question, Damien. Were you still on the committee when you applied for the job, or did you interview yourself in this process?
I asked myself some really good questions. No, so I probably should have put that. So certainly a few people asked off the committee. My brother for sure, myself, and a few other members. Said, this is a longer process than we committed for originally. We thought it'd be this, one set of interviews. So it worked out, I think. And, I've done a couple of things since to show that this is, those folks put their trust in me and I'm going to give it right back. No question.
How long did you end up doing that for?
Literally, that was probably for 15 years. Yep.
So not a little bit.
Not at all. And so think about this too. So I had a great superintendent that just left a month ago for another district. And when he came in, and I knew him a little bit prior too, he's a principal of another school. And he came to me and so the contract was funny, right? So I would be evaluated by the town selectmen and the superintendent. Like they were my bosses equally. And so he came to me and he said, I think you have a full-time job doing the high school and middle school. You don't need to do the rec stuff anymore, like at all. He's like, how much are you married to it and you want to keep it? And I said, I will follow your direction of severing those duties quite easily. So he did. He went down to the first selectman at the time and said, Damian's got a full-time job at the school doing all this stuff. And so we need to split this and, have him. Honestly, part of that conversation was because I would have vacation time that I would lose every year because I couldn't take it. Right. And we had a summer program at the lake for kids K through sixth grade and swim lessons. Like I was doing all that. And it was nutty that I spent that much time there. But I did it for a long time. And then I'm glad this superintendent stepped up for me and said, yeah, we are going to keep everything the same, salaries and whatever, but you'll just not have to do the rec side. And that worked for me.
Let me ask you this question, Damian. If I say this statement to you, it's been a long time since I've been in some real trouble.
Mm.
Can you carry on? Can you explain what that might mean?
This is from that date, right? So this is, if you know Devon Park, it's where the softball World Series is. And again, Sophia was a softball player, so she said, "Dad, are you going to Oklahoma? Try to go by the championship park." And I said, "Okay." So mentioned to Dustin while we were there. We're driving from one end of Oklahoma to another, and it was good conversation. I'm not sure that Josh was so fortunate in the other vehicle, but anyway, so we went to the park, and we drive in. I think it was Saturday afternoon, evening, right?
Yep.
And so we drive in, and the World Series ended, I think, the day before.
Thursday.
So it was sort of like the morning after a New Year's Eve party at a facility, and there were papers everywhere and some cups and some stuff. So we walked up. It was myself, Dustin, Phil Risen, Jason Culler, and Josh Matthews. I think that was it, right?
Yeah.
Yep. And so we go, and the gates are open to the park. Now, there were some workers in the parking lot breaking down the guardrails, the barriers. And so we walked up kind of looking around like, why is the gate open? This is kind of strange. Walked right in. The chair backs were there and the tablecloths were on the ground, and we go down and I'm standing taking some pictures. Phil Risen, our executive director, goes down, jumps over a fence. He's at home plate. And I'm like, this is not okay. And Color, I think Color kept saying, tell him, Patty, if security comes. I'm like, I'm not saying it. I said, it has been a long time since I've been in real trouble. I don't want it to be today. And that's where that line came from, because I'm like, I'm not going on that field. I'm not. Bill's in the dugout. And it was crazy that it was wide open, right? We walked through the announcer booth. I took a picture through the window, and the scoreboard controller was there still with the digits on it. It wasn't connected to the board. There were notes. It was like the game was over. We're leaving. It was
Did you guys get in trouble?
No,
We did not get in trouble.
let me tell my version of that.
Mm.
So we were going in to just take a picture. We were just going to go to the field and take a picture. That was the original agreement. And then the gate was open, and here we go. We go in. And Damian and I are standing on the concourse, and we're watching. Jason's digging through trash, and he's found like the box where the trophies are presented, the individual trophies. He's found a box. He's like, man, I'm trying to find a trophy. And Damian and I are standing up on the concourse. Well, Phil finds a tablecloth, a championship banner, and he's like, gosh, check this out. And he's holding it up and said, come down, take a picture. That's when Damian looked at me and he said, man, it's been a long time since I've been in trouble. And so I was like, yeah, me too. I mean, I'm going to stay right here in case the authorities come. I got a quick exit. I can get out of here. We can leave them down on the field, whatever. I no more than get those words out of my mouth, and Damian is down on the field. He had succumbed to the peer pressure. He's down on the field, and Phil comes he resurfaces out of the dugout. He's got a softball that's stamped the College World Series. He's got a softball. He's got Gatorade towels. Color joins him in the dugout, and then they go into the locker rooms, which are attached to the dugout. They're going in and out, and I'm like, I not one time stood on the field. I stayed up in the concourse area, because if we were going to get in trouble, they were going to get in trouble. I was just going to be there like, hey, I tried to get him out of here.
Accessory. I don't know about that.
But it was an incredible trip, and what a fun statement that Damian made. I mean, no more than he got those words out of his mouth. It's been a long time since I've been in some real trouble. I didn't ask him what kind of real trouble he'd been in prior to that. And we were able to get out of there. But the cool thing about that visit was it was like he said, they just left the place like the game was over just hours before that. But it had been like 48 hours prior to that. And there were still lineup cards on the dugout. There were still, you can go on the Texas side, you can go on the OU side. And Phil, that cup that Damian had, Phil goes into one of the booths. He's like, hey, we need 5 of these. So he just grabbed 5 of them because there were 5 of us. Took softball. We were just going there to take a picture of the facility, and we got an in-depth tour. And there's a great quote from Damian that said, it's been a long time since I've been in some real trouble. I won't ask you what the real trouble was that you got into, but we did scathe the security that we didn't get caught. And we got memories that will last obviously a lifetime. But like he said, we went through the whole press box, went up to ESPN's booth. It was just all left unlocked. And I really think if Phil Risen could have taken one of the padded chairbacks, he would have taken that. If he could have got it back in his carry-on, but he couldn't. So it was a fun trip. It was a fun time.
It was memorable. It was great. Yeah, and for the record, when the national executive director demands you come down onto the field, then you just do that, because I might have gotten in real trouble from him had I not done that. So
that's what you're going with.
I'm sticking with that. It's a safe place.
So I jokingly said this in the intro. Damian is self-proclaimed driver's ed instructor or critiquer, but commentator nonetheless. And some of the best lines that have come out of my time on the board have been in a van when Damian gets in, and many people are praying for their lives or sweating profusely or um, really scared. Um, and and Damian, he doesn't just make comments in the van. He'll take some photos afterwards of how cars are parked or not parked. And when I say cars, I mean a van. And I won't even mention who drives said van. Their initials are Rich Barton. I mean, RB. It's so, Damien, do you still critique driver's ed, or do you teach that? Was that part of your slash roles when you were community ed and community wellness and AD and everything else?
So I'll say that I critique driving when I'm frightened for my life. So maybe that's how the role started. But so I'll start with Rich Barton. I love Rich Barton. He is an amazing person, and he's our driver. And I love to tease him when he gets laughing. It's awesome to me, and I do love the man. There's no question. So of course, a group of whoever, whatever we have in the van, 12, 15, whatever it is, one little thing becomes like, oh, we ran a stop sign when you just kind of, rolled and then come to a complete stop. And then there were a couple of times where Rich is talking to the back of the van while he's driving forward in the van. And so it might have hit a curb, he might have done something, nothing bad, never anything bad, but we, of course, um, tried to be funny and lighten it up a little bit. We'd yell stuff from the back. Hey, can you pull over uh, at the Sports Authority or Dick's Sporting Goods so we can buy some helmets while we're riding in this van? Whatever it is, we'd love to tease them. And then Dustin's right. So at lunch one day, we're at our national headquarters. We take a break for lunch. I walk around outside of the building, whatnot, and I look, and there's the van, and it's not parked between the lines. It's on one of the lines. So the group has a group text. So I take a picture and I send it, and I say, the driver instructor has deducted 50 points from your license for failure to properly park this van, and I send it out, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" But it's great fun, and I always say this again. Rich and I are friends, and I said, I get you guys might be scared, but I'll tell you, I don't know what he'd do to the rest of you, but he would never let anything happen to me. So I'm safe in this van. So you all should ride with me.
One of the best lines Damien had, I kid you not, he makes the statement, and Rich says something back, and Damien says, I'm sorry, Rich, I can't hear when I'm praying. I can't listen while I'm praying.
Yeah. I nervously scream while I'm frightened to death while I'm driving. Sorry, I can't hear you. My head is between my knees in the crash position. So we have a lot of fun with it. But he's the best. So, but he's a good sport, and these guys love to tease him.
So, Damien, I want to. I mean, we can go inside jokes for quite a while, and I can make comments. I can tell. I won't reveal all this stuff, and we've talked about several of our past guests that have been on this podcast. But on a serious note, your involvement in the board and your involvement into the past president position. There's a lot of ways I could run with this, but I'm just going to simply say, what are you taking away from your time on the board? What has that meant to you? What has that opportunity provided for you?
So it's really an amazing journey, being on the board. So this is my 5th year. I roll off in December. I'm not looking forward to it at all. I'm not. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in February. For the past 5 years, I flew out to Indy and was with Phil and the board and the staff, and I love all of them, and I'm going to miss them. So what my takeaway is that there are great people really all over the country, and in your hometown, in your home school, we're often the cop, right? We are the rules committee, and no, you can't park there. No, you can't walk across the court and yell at the coach or the official. No, I'm sorry, you can't park on the lawn, whatever it is, right? We have to do some of that stuff, but at the national level, it's positive. It's all positive, and it's wholesome and it's good, and it's a bunch of people with different perspectives sharing information, sharing their compassion, their love for one another, and it's really powerful. And so, if you need to sort of reflect, you're having a bad day or whatever it is, you literally, I can think of Dustin or Josh or Tall and say, you know what? These people are so awesome, and just thinking about them and my relationship with them, it's special, and it goes through board members that have rolled off, Lisa Gingras, Mike McGurk, Lannis Robinson, like this, just some really great people, and it's really amazing to sit on a board with 20 of some of the most awesome people around the country that are sincere about wanting to help our 16,000 members across the country. So it's been very special.
So, did you have to run against anybody for the at-large position?
So nope, I was given a free pass, and they went like this. Damian, let's put Damian up for an at-large candidacy. So as he teased that up for me, when I was asked to run as an at-large Section 1 candidate, we went to Maine, and I had to run against another gentleman from New York to be the candidate. And so that obviously went fine, and it worked out. And I was the
For
representative
you,
for
I don't
Section
think
1.
the person in New York would say the same thing.
No, there's another funny story there, but I'll hold that one back. But you're right. It was I think they probably were not Connecticut again, right? Women's basketball and UConn basketball leading anyway. So I get the nomination from Section 1, and I'm proud of it. And again, Fred Balsamo, if you know him, he's a bulldog, and he's a rough speaking guy, but a most caring guy, no question. He is as compassionate as he is brutal. You really get both, and I'll tell the story about that in a bit. So we go into the time frame of sending all of my information into the NIAAA, and there's a deadline. Everything's got to be in by October 1, so on and so forth. And I'm running against a woman from Oklahoma, and at that time, she then leaves the profession of high school athletics and goes into OU, I think it might have been. And
Oklahoma
now
State.
so she's in the college ranks, so she cannot run as an athletic director. But we're past the deadline for sending in all your paperwork, and I am immediately uncomfortable with the whole thing. Now, again, the sort of backdrop was prior to that election, that would have been the first election where there were two candidates running in this region and two in another region. It used to be there were three, and so if one dropped out, nobody cared, right? Because there was still going to be two. But they didn't have bylaws to cover this. So
That's your line. It wasn't when you got the job for the committee you were on, but this is your line. This is when you're uncomfortable. I just want to make sure.
True that. So this person's not there, and so I get the call. It might have been from Phil or Mike Blackburn, and they said, "Well, here's the situation we're in, and so you're going to serve on the board come December." And I said, all due respect, no, like that cannot be that somebody gets this free pass. It's not like this is not fair. I get the bylaws, we can look at them, and so then Fred calls me, and he scolds me. This is not yours to give away. This is Section 1. you're the candidate. He said, in a sense, get out of your own way. He said, assume the role. You're going to get on the board. That's that. They'll change the bylaws down the road. So we're in Maryland for the election. We still went through the process, right? We had the little trinkets to give away and flyers and all that kind of stuff.
But you were competing against nobody.
Nobody. And it was if you will, the first electronic voting. So I'll tell you this one story first. So as I'm leading up to it, I said, I don't still have to give that candidate speech, do I? And they were like, yes, you do. I said, no one wants to hear a speech from a guy that already won the election, basically, because he's running against no one. And I said, and they said, yes. So in my speech, I said, I am fully aware of how uncomfortable this position is running unopposed and yada, yada. And so actually when I said, so when I take over on the board in December, I promise I'll work hard for the membership. A friend of mine who's sitting in the back says there was a woman sitting next to her that was on her phone. And when I said that, she looked up at my friend and said, well, that's kind of arrogant. He thinks he already won. And then she said, well, he kind of did because he's not running against anybody. It was kind of funny. So it was really uncomfortable for me, to be honest with you. And the bylaws changed to help the other candidates or to fill in that if there's a void, what to do. But it was when I went to the Section 1 meeting, and again, you got to understand, there's a little mafia sort of mist in the background. I got up, I turned around. If you know Bob Hopek, I said, I appreciate all the support as the Section 1 candidate, and you do the old mafia. And I want to tell you that New Jersey had nothing to do with that woman dropping out of the race. And so they appreciated that. It was funny. So he gave that back. He said, yeah, we're good. So it was a free pass. And I really wanted to make sure that I did a good job when I got in there. So hopefully I did a couple of good things.
Yeah. And he ascended to a president's role, a president-elect role. And well, I won't even dive into that one. I'll just say he's been a phenomenal president and a phenomenal leader for our organization and for people in that room. And what I appreciate about Damian is he is absolutely professional all the time, except when he's not. And there are a few times when he lets that guard down. But what you saw here today has been Damian in a nutshell. He is. He truly lives that. It's not about him. It's about other people and serving other people and letting other people get the spotlight. And I've got story after story after story I can tell on Damian and just the heart that he has, the leader that he is. But the fun that we get to have and that I get to have because I have a friendship with Damian and he came to Oklahoma and got to spend time with my family and got to spend time pouring into the ADs here in Oklahoma, got to see what Broken Arrow is, got to spend time with Jason Culler, another friend of the show that's been here a number of times. I can't say enough great things about Damian. And I should say Damian, because that's how Phil Risen calls him. And it's actually in my phone, D-A-Y, with a capital Y, M-I-A-N, so that I remind it every time I see a text or a call from Damian that it is Damian. And what I didn't get into, and I know Danielle's got meetings that she's got to jump to, so I'll try to wrap this up the best that I possibly can. I know that there's some things that I'm leaving out, and some comments and some stories that I really want to get into. And so maybe we do a part 2 later on where we could come back and revisit this, and maybe when Damian's not on the board. But what I do appreciate, Damian, is your willingness to do this. We've kind of been a little MIA because Danielle's been dealing with the hurricanes, and she's
exhausted.
it's been they've been they avoided Helene for the most part, and then Milton came in and did not avoid them. And so, obviously, thoughts and prayers always with those people that have been impacted by either hurricane and what's going on. And I don't know if all the water went straight to Florida and Georgia and North Carolina, but we haven't had a drop of rain here in Oklahoma since I don't think in October at all. So we'd like to have some of that, but not obviously the hurricane stuff. But I thought it was awesome that Damian be the one that introduced us back again and to get us back rolling. It's our maiden voyage, as I said earlier, into Connecticut. But what you see is what you get with Damian. He is as genuine and authentic, and it doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m. when we're dodging alligators on a golf course, when we're out on our walk, or if it's in the boardroom, it's the same Damian. So I appreciate that, Damian. I appreciate your willingness to jump on here and spend some time with us today.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I love sharing stories, and I got tons more if you wanted them. And the friendship I have with you, Dustin, it's special. It'll last forever. And it's great to meet Danielle. It's an honor to be asked to ever go anywhere and speak. I'm always thinking, they want to hear from me. I'm from nowhere in Nowheresville, and okay, I'll go. And but it's an honor, and again, meeting great people from around the country is just a blessing, no question about it.
I definitely appreciate it as well, hopping on here and getting to know you a little bit. Now that I know how close you are with Dustin, I'm a little weary though. Anybody who is that good friends with Dustin, I have to be careful by.
Well,
but no,
listen, Danielle, hold on. I met his family, and they said, "Can you keep an eye on Dustin for us? He needs some friends." So I said, "All right,
It's
I'll do
true.
that."
Yeah, it's not by choice. This is, I mean, it's like
Understood.
the election. They didn't have a choice, and David didn't have a choice in this deal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person in December, getting to chat with you a little bit. So thank you very much for coming on here and sharing some of your experiences. They were great.
Thank you so much again. It's an honor. I appreciate it.
That wraps up this episode. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our sponsor, Wall of Fame, who excels at telling your school stories and supports us in telling ours. Check out the description of this episode for a link to receive a discount on all Wall of Fame products. We are looking forward to the next story and hope you are too.